Hey everyone! Welcome back to another one of CCA interview series. My name is Aaliyah Booker. I've been a CCA intern for 2 years now, and for you guys already know, I was born with a facial difference called golden heart syndrome. But like I always say, it never stopped me from achieving any of my goals. So today we are trying something new and something different. I have a special guest with me today, and his name is Jono Lancaster. And Jono is a facial difference advocate, author, everything above. And if you haven't known of him, he is all over social media platforms. And today we're here to discuss his new and very first book, Jono Lancaster, Not All Heroes Wear Capes. And we're just going to dive in a little deeper and discuss more about his book and the reason and all the process behind this book. So Jono, thank you so much for being a part of our series.
No, thank you for having me. And you have a beautiful energy, and when I see you presenting to the camera, I'm proud of you. You're doing good, and then now you're holding my book, and I'm like, man, that's crazy. Because I do,
Crazy, right?
yeah, I'm incredibly proud of the book, and I put so much of me in a life story, but there's a lot of takeaways for the reader.
Right.
But to see you holding it, I get a little bit shy and a little bit like, this is my baby,
Yeah.
and people are out there reading it and studying it,
Right.
and it's a little bit terrifying, but also pretty special.
The best thing.
Oh,
And I've had so many conversations with a bunch of teens, and they all have a copy of your book, and they all read it, and it was like they felt seen, they felt heard for the very first time. And when I read it, I didn't realize like I had so much trauma and a lot of healing process to do internally. And it felt so good to like, okay, it's okay to work on these things. It's okay to have gone through this. And as a 22-year-old, I feel like I'm still learning about myself. And how you mentioned like, oh, I love your energy. It took a lot for me to, be in this position. And reading this book, we did go through a lot of similarities, but we both had different journeys. And that's where we're going to talk more about this. And I'm so excited.
Well, the thing with healing, it's never complete.
No.
It's never complete, and one of the hardest things is I am really happy. I love my face, and I'm a confident person, and I've got beautiful relationships and connections, and I still have healing to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't realize them until something happens. There's a trigger, and you're like, oh, I've still got that to work on. Man, I thought I did the work on that. And so yeah, for anybody listening, like, how did they get there with all this positivity? It's still ongoing. The work is still ongoing, and we may come across as happy and confident, and we truly are.
We are.
But we are still healing and working on stuff.
Exactly. And that's the best part, because you get to learn more about yourself and things that you never even thought of yourself, of being capable of doing. And that's just the amazing part. It's the exciting part. Because like, okay, I could do this. Now what's next? You know?
Yeah.
And that's what we're here with the series. And to get in with this book, okay, so I know you lived in Yorkshire?
Yorkshire, yeah.
Yorkshire.
You're going to be the English and the American pronunciation.
Wait, how do you say it?
Yorkshire.
Yorkshire. Okay.
Yeah. But you would say Yorkshire.
Yorkshire? Okay,
Yeah.
Yorkshire. And in a village called Featherstone. How was it growing up there?
So my village, Featherstone, was a small village, very working class, and it was one of those villages that everybody knew everybody.
Okay.
And my mum was a single mum, lived in a local council house, low income. Her family had grown up, her 2 children, and moved out and raising their own families.
Right.
And then she opened up her door to all these children with disabilities, and that's how she met myself when I was 2 weeks old. And she fostered me, and she just gave me this beautiful foundation of self-love. And we were always this family that just had all these army of kids. They were forever interchanging. But everybody knew us, and those tough times, like, we fought amongst ourselves, like who got the best pudding out of the fridge, and who had to clean the bathroom, and who had to clean the living room. But there's a lot of happy memories in Featherstone.
Yeah.
And that's home. And my mum still lives in that house.
Really?
Yeah.
The same house? Wow.
The same house. All my box of toys are still in one of the bedrooms,
really?
Under the bed. Yeah. You know, there's all my old school reports there still.
Yeah,
And
of course.
it's still home, and
yeah.
you know, I go back there to see my mum, and it's very familiar, and
right.
it's safe, and
right.
In my old bedroom there's still that mirror
right.
in my bedroom that I spent so much time looking at my face in and asking why.
Right.
You know, I might go and revisit that mirror and spend some time with it, because so much has changed.
It has. And before I get into my next question, can we give a huge shout out to Miss Jean, your mom? You know? Like, can we shout out Miss Jean? We love you so much, because you not only raise a hero, but you raise so many other kids in so many, that go through so many scenarios and different cases. And I just want to you are the real hero. And you mentioned that in a quote, which I'm going to find right now, because I love that quote. It was like on page 4. There's also, however, one capeless hero in your life who you might never have truly appreciated before, and that's you. And I feel like when it comes to your support system and everything, Jean was that for you, and you was that for yourself as well.
So I didn't realize that when I was a kid, I was the biggest hero in my own life.
Right.
And my mum helped me have that ever since I was as a kid.
Right.
You know, she always she built me up, and she set me up to succeed.
Right.
With all the children.
Right.
You know, some had wheelchairs, some had sticks, some had special shoes.
And she didn't treat you guys any differently.
No,
I love that.
We were all equal, and I just thought every household was this diverse and crazy and mad, and I was like, we're all different, and I was like, that's cool.
That is cool.
But yet we were all the same.
Right.
You know, and you know, we have more things in common with our neighbour than we actually realise, and I had that. But Jean, you know, she just opened up her home, her heart to all these children, and I'm incredibly blessed. She was my first ever hero. Yeah. And she allowed me to be the biggest hero in my life. Right. Yeah.
She allowed you to be yourself, like for yourself, and she had no limits, not to you, to anyone there. And I really appreciate that, because not everyone is able to experience that, you know?
Yeah, my mum, she gets so much recognition, and it's so deserved.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing.
Of course. And I heard you grew up with 2 siblings, because I know she had kids of her own, Claire and Steven. Uh-huh. Yeah. Are they still around? Like, how is your relationship with them?
Yeah, that's my brother and sister.
Yeah.
When I back-chatted my mom and didn't do as I said, they were very quick to step in and tell me off and keep me in check. Yeah. But you know, they'd moved out of the house, and they were raising their own families.
Exactly.
And soon I had nephews and nieces when I was like 6, 7 years old. But no, they're my family, and you know, there are times when I'm like, I felt guilt. There was a big guilt of mine at times, because there was all these foster children that were living with us, and I was the only one that my mum was able to adopt, and I felt guilty that I'd been given a second chance of having a forever family and a forever home, and a lot of them didn't, and they moved through the care system. But something that I still struggle with when I think about it. But yeah, I was so blessed to have Mum, Claire, and Steven, and it's special.
And Adoption Day, I read that in the book. Every time the Adoption Day, we celebrate that, and I feel like that should be something. I know it's a thing that children these days, they celebrate that with their families, and I've seen a lot of TikTok videos that adoptive parents, they make that like the best day, including their birthdays as well. And we can talk more about that.
A gotcha day, as we say, it's our adoption day, and you know, I celebrate it. We had a party, and Ever since I remember I was a kid, we celebrated it like a birthday party. I had cake, I got more presents, and I was like, you know, my mum chose me. You got stuck with your mums and dads, and my mum chose me, and I just thought that was the coolest story, and it was just the best. It was just when I was a kid, it was the best story, and I loved it, and my mum never shied away from having conversations with me about my birth parents. Because I did think about them, and I did ask questions of, you know, why did my birth parents leave me, and why are you so small and old, and you know, she's this short little old lady, and like, why don't I have a dad? All my mates have got a dad, and they were difficult questions. I was firing at my mum, and she answered them honestly, openly, with words that I could understand, and I'm incredibly grateful that we had that open communication.
Right. I really appreciate that, because not everyone has that support system, you know. And Jean, for her to be so open and just so raw with you at such a young age, not a lot of parents, you know, are willing to give that information to a child, because it's like, oh, how are they going to process it? Are they going to hate me? Are they going to... And she was like, oh, you're going to know, and you're going to, you know, and I'm just going to give it to you like that.
And that's so true, and a lot of the workshops that we have done throughout this retreat, there's been so many difficulties, and like, how do we overcome this and this, and it's all separate. But one of the common answers to every question is communication. And my mum communicated with me
the biggest thing.
Throughout my entire life. She didn't hold back in giving me the truth. And even when that truth was hard to hear and painful for us both, we still went there together. And I'm very... The more I think about it, and I'm like, oh, that was huge. That was huge. That allowed me to feel. And that's so,
And I really want to make known to anyone that's watching, your support system could be anything. For me, my support system, I should say my parents, but it's my dogs. I love my dogs so much, and they got me through everything, surgery, therapies, everything. And support system couldn't be anyone that genuinely loved by you and just respects you in any way. So I feel like that's very important to talk about. And my next question for you is, when you went to your hospital visits and you were based in London, you had to go through speech therapists, hearing tests, and everything. And you discussed in your book that you loved your face when you were a child. And that really stuck out to me, because it was the opposite. Because when I read your book, you hated your face in high school. For me, I hated my face when I was a child and in high school. So what changed that perspective in high school? Was it like people actually giving you attention, like giving you negative hate? And was it when you were a child, did you receive that hate, or was it more love? Like, can you discuss more on that?
Yeah, when I was a child, like I said, I grew up with all these children that had all these differences, a limb and facial differences. And I didn't have a bad experience in regards to my face. And you would think being left in the hospital at birth was a bad experience, but as a child, it wasn't. It was just like, hey, I get 2 birthdays. Hey, I get to go down to London, and I get to go and see the museum, and we're having a surgery, but I get this toy, or I get to miss school, or I get a pizza.
The best thing ever.
And it was always, I don't recall many negative experiences, even my surgeries and hospital appointments. I don't have PTSD. I was very, very lucky. I have a fear of creams.
Creams, really?
Yeah, they had the cannulas in my arms, and there was numbing cream on there, and I always remember coming out of hospital, and that was the last thing that they would take this plaster off and the cannula out, and there'd be 2 dollops of cream here and here. And I'm like, well, wipe it off, please. And now I have a fear of creams, like other people touching with cream, I like freak out. I need to be in control of the cream. But apart from that, childhood experience were really, really positive. And I don't recall any major bullying. I was popular at school, and life was good. And then when I went to high school, that's when it changed. Because those stories that I once shared about my mum going to the hospital and choosing myself, and like talking about my little ears that are just aesthetically really cute but don't work, and I need a hearing aid, and when my mum shouts at me I can turn my hearing aid off. I love those stories. But now in high school, when I was sharing those stories, they were like, "Nah, you were left in hospital because you look like that." And I was like, oh. And then I started noticing the stares and people pulling their eyes down or folding their ears over. Don't go near him because you'll catch his disease. And then it was all new to me, and I'm having conversations with my mum, and the conversations with my mum are becoming harder and harder, and I'm like, I'm all of a sudden building up a wall between me and my mum.
I noticed that distance.
And I felt like I was protecting her, and I wasn't able to talk to my friends, I wasn't able to talk to teachers. It was all internalized. And then now, in my head, I had all this negative information, didn't know where to go with it. Started looking in that mirror that I had in my bedroom and started asking, why me?
Why me?
Pushing my eyes up, imagining what life would be like with a regular face. Then I started thinking about my birth parents, and then all of a sudden it was just negative, and that was a big turning point for me.
And to go back to your hospital experiences, I feel like your mom's genius. If it wasn't for your support system, because that's what my parents used to do. Like, I used to be so ashamed to go to the hospital and go to my doctor visits, but like they made it like a fun day for me to make it seem like, okay, this is about you, but like we're gonna make it more positive. Let's go to the ice cream store, let's go to the museum, aquarium, you know. And I feel like without their support and without them, you know, changing the perspective of it, I wouldn't be able to be the person I am today, because you know, you got PTSD. You know, for me, leaving the hospital with the anesthesia, that was my thing. Like, I hated, like, you know, the type of smell, and I would, like, smell it every time I walk out of the hospital. And I could just remember, every time I'm sleeping, I remember the smell. So that was my type of trauma I gained from the hospital. But within that, like, for me, like, I never wanted to be associated with people that had facial differences. And when I was in the hospital, I never, well, my family probably says this all the time, like I met other children that had facial differences, but I don't recall anyone. Like, I don't recall anyone. I don't remember, like, I felt like a lab rat, you know, in the hospital. And I just never talked to any of the doctors. The doctors were so friendly, and I was just like giving like hate, like leave me alone, don't talk to me, like giving them an eye. And just hearing your experience, because I know you had a crush on one of your nurses.
I had a crush on one of the nurses,
So like hearing your experiences and comparing it to mine, I'm like, oh, I didn't even talk to nobody. You know, I was like, no. So.
And again, you know, if we have any health professionals watching, they're a big part of our lives.
They are.
And the words and their actions do stay with us, because I was in hospital having a surgery, and I'd started growing hairs on my legs for the very first time. And the nurse that I had a crush on, she pulled my gown because I was due to have a skin graft. And I'd had all these injections. And she pulled my gown to one side, and I had my little hairy legs, and I was like so embarrassed about my little hairy legs. There was only a couple there. And I was like, oh no, this is so. And that was like the most traumatic experience I had in hospital, and nursing my hairy legs.
Out of everything, they're hairy legs.
So no, when it comes to our experiences in hospital, it is a big difference. But yeah, my mum gave me as much control. I remember my mum was able to claim expenses back, but we didn't have any money, and there was a little counter where my mum would take a bus tickets and we would get refunded for us, and that was my job to save the bus tickets, and it was always my job to make sure that we got off at the right stop, and I just felt so included and important that I had these little jobs. So yeah, I'm very grateful that my mum was able to navigate that hospital time, because it can be a traumatic time. My mum did well with that one.
And to fast forward, how you said during your teenage years, that's when it turned all upside down, and you create this wall barrier against you and your mom and
everybody.
The whole world, society, your friends, even, you know. And it's crazy because your friends are like your close friends, like, you know, you think you can talk to them about anything, but like, then at the same time, it's like, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't have a facial difference, so how can I talk to you? And then that's when you discuss more about mirror reflection. And that's where the big question that I even went through is, why me?
Why me?
Why me? And my question for you is, for me, that's when I isolated myself, teen years. You know, I had to get through that question, why me? And I would question my faith. I'm like, why would you make me like this? Why was I here? Why was my purpose? What is going on? You know? And so for my question for you is that, was that your time that you reflected on yourself very well, and like the mirror reflection, like how did that help and benefit you?
Oh, so that's a big question.
I know.
I always described myself, I found myself living in a bubble, and I was experiencing life in this bubble, and this bubble protected me. You know, everybody was at arm's length. I was popular through high school, and yes, I had bullying incidents, but the biggest bully in my life was me, and that internal language that I had towards myself. Every single day I was so hateful, and I would go to parties, but then I would also isolate myself, and then I would throw myself in the deep end with alcohol and through my teenage years, and then I would isolate myself. Being or feeling alone in a crowded room is absolutely terrifying. I felt isolated around people. It sounds so conflicting. Was that darkness the magic? I don't see it at that time. It was dark and it was horrible, and I don't feel like I needed to go through that to find my magic, but I went through it, and it was just survival.
It really was.
It was just, and I in the book I talk about having suicidal thoughts. And for me, it was I wanted to be involved in a tragic accident.
I remember.
I don't belong in this world that's obsessed with image and beauty and looks and trail.
Exactly.
And it was just dark. It was just dark, and I don't feel like I grew in that darkness. I just survived for a number of years, and then that's gone. And then I've now entered young adulthood, 18, 19, 20, and that's where I found my magic.
Wow. Yeah, I love how you like interpret it. Like, I don't think that was my magic. That was survivable.
It was survivable.
Yeah, and I'm like thinking, that was like, you're in it or you're out, Aaliyah. You know. And
I still have that with me today, and it's mad because sometimes my win is if I get up and clean my teeth.
That's the little wins. I always say that. The little wins are the big things in life.
And that was a big part of my teenage life. I've had a shower
today.
You know? That's a win. And now as an adult, there are days when I'm like, got up and I made the bed.
Same.
That's a win for me today. I'm still in a sad place or whatever it is I'm going through. And when I have these conversations, this is not me saying that I don't love myself or I'm not happy. I have these moments where I feel sad.
Exactly.
And these teenage years, it was just, today I cleaned my teeth, and that's it. Today I might have eaten something. It was a survival mode.
Right, and especially in the teenage years, that's when it hits the most because you're finding your identity, trying to find out your interests.
You're comparing.
Comparing. That's social media, and that's when the boys are like girls are like boys, and then that's when it hits, and it's like, okay. That's when I sat with myself. I'm like, okay, I'm not like my friends. I'm not getting the attention that they're getting. And how can I get the attention? That's when it comes to people pleasing, and that's when it comes to you deteriorating yourself into conforming yourself into someone that you're not. And that's what we can't have, you know? Because, like, how are you going to survive? You know, you're trying to survive in the world, trying to, you know, embrace your differences, but you're people pleasing and pretending to be someone you're not.
Surviving by people pleasing and having no boundaries is a very, very dangerous road to go down. Because if I did it as a child, to get friendships. I felt like I needed to do that to get friendships,
Right.
and I didn't.
Right.
But I learned that, and then as I got older, I started doing those same tactics to get into relationships,
Right.
intimate relationships, and
Right.
it led me to being very vulnerable, and I got myself in a lot of vulnerable situations.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've spoken about that this week at retreat, about the importance of setting boundaries and the need to people please. It's
Right.
a dangerous ground for sure.
It is. And I wanted to bring up something that you mentioned in the beginning of your book, how your mom would drop you off, I think in front of, I forgot where it was, but she would expect you to go get a haircut. Right. And I related to that so much because I was scared of making people uncomfortable. So like when I was younger, I still have curly hair, but I used to like cover the side of my face and just cover it, you know. But I would want it to be straight and like, you know, well done. And my mom was like, oh, go to the hair salon, I'll drop you off. No, I went back home and did it myself. And just to rejoice, like you did the bowl cut by yourself and everything.
It was a funny way to start the book.
Yeah, it was.
But
I know.
Sat in front of the mirror in a hair salon.
I know.
Oh my God, staring at a face that I hated more than anything. It was
And like looking at yourself, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, teenage years was tough for a lot of different weird, wonderful reasons, and yeah, like somehow survived it with all my dodgy bowl cuts.
Right, and you was in snorkeling, you did diving, all these.
Yeah, my mum sent me to every club going.
Exactly, same. My parents as well. Like in these hardest sports, crazy sports, and I never understood why.
Yeah.
And then I finally asked a question. I'm currently 22. I literally asked them the question like I would say a year ago. Like, why did you put me in these sports when, you know, I had zero confidence? And they're like, Aaliyah, like, we wanted you to be judged on your abilities internally. You know, all your life you're judged on your appearances. We want them to be judged on your capabilities and your strengths. And I was like, oh my God, you guys are so smart.
Yeah, so true.
Because I had like a little hatred towards them. I'm like, why are you making me uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah.
I never understood why.
Yeah.
And
that's so true. And what they also gave you the opportunity to do was to advocate for yourself.
Right.
Because when you're on the track or when you're in the swimming pool, you've got to advocate for yourself. You've got to listen to the teacher. You've got to ask a question, but I don't understand. You want me to do what? You want me to move my arms and my legs as well and try and keep my head out of the water? And so I was learning, I was being sociable and I was doing things that were uncomfortable, which is so important, but I was learning to advocate for myself.
Exactly.
And that, again, back to communicating your needs is hugely important.
Yeah. So my next question is for you, because when there's kids out there and they're young, still trying to figure it out, and they always ask me like, how can I advocate, but instead of not public speaking or not just sharing my story just yet. So my question is for you, what advice can you give to any teen or kid out there that wants to advocate but in a different way and not just sharing their story just yet? Because when they ask me like that question, I'm like, just you being yourself outside in society, just you hanging out with your friends, just doing things like that, because you're showing society that you're human, which is kind of crazy because, you know, we're all humans, but they don't think of us like that. But just doing little things like that, like daily activities, you know, and just showing them like you're speaking. Like it's crazy to think that they think we can't speak, you know. So my question, so like what other ways that you can give for them to advocate for themselves?
I agree with what you just said. We, as anybody with a visible difference, we advocate every single day.
Exactly.
We step outside into this big scary world at times and we smile.
That's it.
That's being an advocate.
Right.
We say hello to a stranger. That's being an advocate.
Yeah.
We make friends with somebody in the park. We have a conversation with the waitress in the coffee shop.
Exactly.
We do our maths homework. As much as we hate doing our maths homework. We play soccer, we do track.
Exactly.
You are an advocate in every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
You don't have to talk, you don't have to go on social media and campaign and fight. You can if you want to.
If you want.
But every single day, by being your authentic self, and I think that's the key here. Being your authentic self, you are being an advocate. If you start pretending to be somebody you are not, there's less advocacy there being done, because you're pretending to be something else. So doing everyday life as your authentic self is being an advocate.
And you don't owe anybody your story at all. Like, your story is your own story, and you tell it at your own timing, you know? And
we talk about that in the book.
We did.
One of the things, if you're not quite ready to share your story and you find yourself somebody asking you a question, role play that with your family, with your friends. Hey, what would you do if you're out in the park and somebody asked you about your face or your difference or your medical thing? Oh, I would say this. What would you say? And then if you start role playing that, when it happens out in public, you're like, okay, we've role played this. You go to your role play. So you don't owe anybody your story, but you can be prepared to give them an answer that keeps you safe and in control of that situation.
Because you always want to have control of who you are and what you share out to other people. You got to make sure of that. And another part of the book, how at the end of each chapter, you have an exercise for anyone that reads the book. And I don't want to spill too much, but I love that because I never had that and practiced that within myself. Like, okay, take deep breaths, you know, remember who you are. And I remember there was like, you're like, oh, when there's a stressful situation, shake like a zebra. And I was like, oh, that is so cute. But the way you like delivered it and like you use metaphors, that's what we need, you know, because
we actually did a workshop here at Retreat where the kids shook it out. We hold so much tension in our bodies and we don't even realize it. And I'm quite body aware now, but there's been certain situations when I might have been recording a podcast and shoulders go up and my head up. And I just look back and I'm like, I'm holding tension.
No, seriously, with this, I'm like, oh, okay, let me fix myself.
And so I can feel myself doing it in many situations, and I'm body aware again, so I'm like pausing, just relax.
You know?
And then I also find myself when I have anxiety that I will tap my and my legs can shake and I will physically shake, and it's my body telling me that I need to shake it like a zebra, and so I can go away and I can fidget, I can move, I can dance, I can relax, deep breaths, or slap my legs, whatever it is. It's getting that tension out that we carry so often and we don't even realize it. So many people self-soothe or carry anxiety. I do this all the time, and that relaxes me. You'll see me do this all the time. Now that I pointed it out to you, and it's
because like as a new advocate myself, like I am starting to share more of my story, and I do get like I'm like still like surprised at myself, like, oh my god, I can't believe you're sharing your story. Like, this is like, you know, it's a lot. When you tell your story, you're reliving your past, you know. It takes you back to your traumas, and I never sat with myself and actually processed the things that I went through. And like whenever I'm like being interviewed or like I'm public speaking, it unlocks a core memory from the past. I'm like, oh my god, like what did you just open? Like this is crazy, you know? And like I do tend to get nervous and shake and like, you know, get like, you know, jittery and everything. But then I started to realize, like, Uncle Leo, you're here for a purpose. You're here for the younger generation. Like I do affirmations for myself, and that actually kind of calms me down, because it's like, okay, like you're born different, but you were born to stand out for a reason. And once that, like, you know, I get calm and collective and everything, that's when I'm like, okay, this is your purpose. I didn't think this was ever going to be my purpose in life, telling my story. And every day is a new day, and like just being here with you, like just I was nervous because I'm like, oh my god, like I'm sitting here with a legend in the making. Like he already got his book. Like you've done so much for the community, and whatever you're doing is universal, because not everyone has a facial difference can relate to this. Everyone can relate to this, you know. And just being here, like I was like, oh, am I prepared? Am I gonna be a great host? Am I gonna relate to you? Are we gonna get down to the nitty gritty? You know, so those are the little things I like, you know, get to, you know, plug out in my head. But then you're like, oh, like, you know, you just gotta, you know, get back to your inner self, you know, do breathing exercises, you know, shake it like a zebra, you know. So I'm like, okay, I need to work on those things, and it really opened such a new outlook on, you know, how to take care of myself, you know, in certain situations, you know.
I think the impact that social media is having, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, there are so many people that are like, I'm going to be an advocate, I'm going to be an advocate, and it's so important. And every time I do a speaking event, I have to change my t-shirt because I am sweating. I'm hot. I've recorded a podcast and I'm hot.
Yeah.
It does take a lot of energy out of
does.
It does. But it's also free therapy. When I do a public speaking event, I'm like, oh, I've had a free therapy session. I've been able to offload all this trauma. Thanks, guys. But it does. It takes a lot out of you. And one of the things that I would say is, I believe that my purpose is to live my best life. And advocacy and being who I needed when I was younger is a byproduct of me living my best life. Because I once thought my purpose was to be who I needed when I was younger, and I found myself giving and not having any boundaries, and I'm like, I need to be on this pedestal, I need to be this knight in shining armor, and it was so unachievable that I found myself burning out. I found myself with sadness, pressure. I found myself with feeling a weight of the community on my shoulders that they didn't put there. I put that there on myself. Whereas now, my purpose is to live my best life. And when I live my best life and I show the world my smile and my words and my charisma or my riz or whatever it is that I am, my beautiful energy, my beautiful soul, that is, again, I'm being an advocate by living my best life. You do not need to force yourself into this advocacy role by doing extreme things. It's living your best life, and then that'll open up doors that you never even imagined. And somehow by living your best life, you opened up the beauty pageant door. You went in there and you did your thing, and that was advocacy. It's like such beautiful, powerful advocacy. But that was you living your best life.
Exactly, and I get like questions, like, how are you, you're not scared? You're not scared? Of course I'm scared. But like, walking through your fears is going to lead you to your greatness in life, you know?
Some of the scariest things we do in life are some of the best things that we do in life.
Like, sure. I didn't think I'll ever be hosting. Like, I never liked public speaking. If we had a conversation like years ago, I would not be looking you directly in the eye. Like, I'll have my head down, shamed. I never thought I'll be in this position. Like, this is scary. Like, I didn't think I'll be a host of a YouTube series, you know? But like, I stepped out of my comfort zone, you know? And that's me living my best life, my authentic self, you know?
I remember you mentioned about the speaking and the universal thing. I did my first speaking event 15 years ago to a school. And I thought I was speaking to children with visible differences. Only speaking to children with visible. I was speaking to the whole school, but my message was to these two individuals. And I came away and I ended up in the playground, and a kid came running over to me. He's like, Jono, can I see your hearing aid? I was like, yeah, sure. And I showed him my hearing aid. Some more kids came running over and they're like, Jono, can you come and play soccer with us? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then within a couple of minutes, I had all these kids around me, all different walks of life, all different backgrounds. And then they were like, hey, Jono, I don't know who my birth parents are. Hey, Jono, I get bullied because of this. Jono, I don't get the best toy. And all of a sudden, these kids were just sharing, and they didn't have visible differences, but they were sharing. And then the dinner lady came over, and she was like, Jono, thank you, I needed to hear that today. The head teacher came over, and she like gave me a hug, and she's crying, and she's like, Jono, I needed to hear your words today. And now I do speaking events all over the world, and I don't really talk about 𝐒𝐤𝐥𝐿𝐷𝐿𝐿 and my visible difference. It comes up, but I talk about self-love, and that message goes out there to every single person, and we're all trying to find our purpose. We're all trying to find our safe places and who our supporters are. So yeah, we are. This is a universal thing.
It is.
It is a universal thing.
And I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, we all go through similar things, but we have different journeys, like you just said.
Yeah.
And
I say that as well because there were a lot of times in, oh, why me? Why do I have to look like this? Why am I the only one? And there were so many other people with or without visible differences that are asking that same question.
Exactly. Yeah.
You think the world's against you, but there's actually a lot of people in the world that are right there with you. And again, by communicating, you start realizing, oh, yeah, I feel like that too.
Right. And it's crazy because I didn't have that realization when I was younger. Like, I thought, like, okay, I was the only one, like, okay, I have a facial difference. And I would, like, look at my friends like they were the pride. Like, you guys are so beautiful.
Yeah.
And when they are sharing their insecurities to me, I'm like, why are they? Like, you have no need to share your insecurities to me. You are perfectly fine. And it took me years to actually realize, like, oh, we all are imperfect in our own ways.
We all carry our own bad struggles.
It's not everything physical appearances. I always thought that, like, you know, like my friends like, oh, like I have something on that. I'm like, girl, you're good. You're good. You look so beautiful. Like, oh my gosh. You know, and now it's like, no, everyone goes through something. Everyone goes through their silent battles, you know.
And you don't need to compare.
No.
And it was one of the things that also, there's that saying that, oh, somebody's always got it worse than me.
Right.
Try and avoid saying that or thinking that, because that devalues your pains and your struggles. Yes, there is so many people that are going through a lot of tough stuff.
Right.
But you don't have to live with that stuff.
Right.
You're living with your struggles.
Right.
And that's heavy for you. So do not compare it to other people's struggles.
Yeah.
Deal and sit and process your stuff. By just saying, oh, other people have got it worse, devalues what you're feeling, diminishes what you're feeling.
Right. And that's the best and worst thing to do, because I say it's the best because that's when you find who you are, but the worst because you gotta sit with yourself. And that's the hardest thing that people struggle to do, but it's the best thing, you know?
There's a technique in the book that I go through, and it's sitting with feelings.
Yeah.
When we're feeling pain, it's like, oh, I need some sugar, I need some ice cream, I need to go and see my friends, I need to go and play soccer, I need to shout and scream because I don't want to sit with this pain.
Exactly, distractions.
Yeah, but when we sit with the pain, that's when we heal.
Right. And my last question for you is, if you had to speak, okay, you guys are going to learn a lot about little J in the book. If you had to speak to little J and tell him and give him advice about yourself during that time, what would you give to him?
I've had a lot of conversations with little J, and the most regular thing that I say to little J is, you attract. You attract beautiful people, beautiful moments, beautiful experiences, and you attract. And I'm incredibly blessed to attract what I attract.
That's a good one. That's a really good one, because I say like questions, like I put that as my last question to everyone, and everyone's questions are beautiful, but the attract, I needed to hear that.
And the reason why that's important to me is because I spent so long asking why my birth parents left me. Why did they reject me? And then for so long in my teenage years, when girls didn't think this was cute, I was like, why am I getting rejected? Why? And I questioned why, and then I ended up isolating myself. And then now I'm a 39-year-old, and I walk around CCA, and I've got all these people that know my drink, and they know my coffee order, and they like, Jono, you need to eat, like I'm doing with you, Jono, you're not eating. Or I'll get a hearing aid battery, and then I'll go to Africa, and I've got that same relationship with other people, and I'm going to South America, and people like, and I once thought that the only safe place I had in the world was my bedroom, and even that wasn't a safe place at times, because I'm trying to see, I'm dealing with my reflection
You're
in the mirror.
Yeah.
But the more I travel, I've realised that my worlds and my interactions with people around me and the things that I'm attracting, all that is becoming my safe place.
Yeah.
And that's something that I say to little Jay all the time. We attract beautiful things, and beautiful things that are meant for us. And yeah, that's pretty special. I also attract a lot of other stuff. But
yeah.
the way that I now set boundaries and I know my worth, that stuff that I attract that's not right for me, I know I can walk away from it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like that's
huge.
one of the bravest thing a person can do, and one of like the greatest things, because some people fall back into their old habits. Yeah. And once you realize your worth, goodbye, next.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Somebody recently asked me they asked me to do something. Yeah. And I said no.
Wow.
And it's one of the hardest things.
I know. I'm going through that now. How to
say no. And as well, when it comes to advocacy as well, he said, oh, do you want to do this podcast? Do you want to do this TV show? Do you want to do this news report? And you're like, oh yeah, I'll do it. But some things aren't right for you. And sometimes you've got to say no. That's not right for me. Right. And you don't need to explain either.
Right.
And no, sometimes no is...
That's it.
That's it.
That's all you gotta do.
That's not for me right now or ever. Well, this is not where anything. And I found that hard. Yeah. But again, boundary setting and not feeling the need to please others. Right. That's kicking in for myself.
Well, Jono, I really appreciate you, not only for being your authentic self, but sharing your journey through such a wonderful book, Not All Heroes Wear Capes. Like, you really put your thought and everything into this, and you're just changing people's lives, especially mine. And for kids to know that they have like resources like this out there, it's really important, because I didn't have this when I was younger. And it really takes a lot of courage and discipline, and you know, it's just a lot to put in this book. And I know this is your baby.
My baby.
And thank you for trusting me to, you know, interview you for this, you know, because this is your world, and you gave it to the world, you know. And I want to say I'm proud of you. You're seen, you're heard, you're welcome in all spaces. And I had a great time interviewing you, get to know more about you and this book. And I can't wait for everyone else to read this book as well. Go get your copy. And again, if anyone wants to know or follow you on any social media platforms,
Jono Lancaster.
Share it. Shout yourself out.
Jono Lancaster on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. And it's give the book a read. It's also in Spanish. It's also on Audible if you want to hear my UK accent a little bit more. But thank you for your kind words.
Of course.
And one of the things I talk about in the book is receiving compliments. So I've received them and I hold them with me, and I really appreciate them.
Yeah. Thank you. Of course. And thank you so much for you guys watching, and stay tuned for the next CCA Outreach series.
You up?
Bye guys!